Well, good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting of the Cunningham Town Board to order. We're going to begin tonight with a public hearing. That'll be followed by the meeting of the Town Board, and that meeting will be followed by the Urbana City Council. So we have a packed agenda, and I hope we can keep things moving along efficiently. So first order of business is the public hearing of the Cunningham Town Board. They'll hold a public hearing at 6 p.m. on Monday, June 13th, 2022, to receive public input on the FY 22-2023 annual budget. I'd like to call the hearing to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans, Ms. Hersey,
Here.
Ms. Colasetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Wilkin, Mr. Quisenberry, Mayor Marlin,
Present.
Ms. Chenoweth,
Present.
Mr. Williams.
Next up is public input. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Town Board on the topic of the budget? I see no one in the audience. We will adjourn this public hearing. All right, we'll move on to the Cunningham Town Board meeting for June 13th, 2022. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans, Ms. Hersey,
Here.
Ms. Colasetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Wilkin, Mr. Quisenberry, Mayor Marlin,
Here.
Ms. Chenoweth, Ms. Chenoweth,
Here. Present. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Next item is approval of the minutes from May 9th, 2022, a special meeting on May 16th, and the special meeting on May 23rd. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Chandra. Any substantive corrections? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next item is additions to the agenda. Are there any additions? Okay. We'll move on to public participation. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Town Board? Seeing none, we'll move on to the committee to verify bills.
Good evening. This last month, the bills were in your packet, but essentially we had $74,112.57 in the town fund. We had $136,270.03 in the general assistance fund, and the total expenditures were $210,382.60. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the bills report before you.
Any questions? Could we have a motion to approve the bills?
I'll move approval of the bills, township bills.
Second.
Moved by Chandra, seconded by Sharice. Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colasetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next item is reports of officers.
Just briefly, and I did spotlight our Schools Out event that we had in the Township Gardens. It was the biggest event ever. We spread out so that we could socially distance. We had over 225 people. A lot of them were students and children. And we partnered with the Urbana Free Library and the Urbana Park District. Urbana was there. It was really a lovely time. Our next event is going to be July 31st. It'll be our self-care community repair wellness fair, focused on health and safety and care, and it will be sponsored by our street outreach team. So a specific focus on homeless and near homeless residents. I also wanted to let you know that rental assistance and utility assistance have been high. I think I mentioned to you that we're cutting back on both of those Luckily, we were under budget on general assistance, so we spent over on rental assistance. We are now giving up to 2 months of rent, and we have constrained our utility assistance to Urbana addresses only. That will include children in Urbana schools, and it's still privately funded, so it's not tax levy dollars going outside of the district, or outside of the township. And I have updated our 211, and I am getting it around to our various partners. But that is a significant change because we had a number of utility assistance requests coming from Rantoul and Champaign and the county. I have verified with our PC that although LIHEAP is closed, they have other sources of funding through the county as well as through the state for utility assistance. They just got that updated on the website, and folks can basically call the old LIHEAP number if they have a utility disconnect notice. So anyone throughout the county who has a utility disconnect notice can contact the LIHEAP number and access utility assistance. They'd have to go through a qualification process, and that's for water, power, sewer, and they also do mortgage assistance, and they're still doing rental assistance. So we kind of verified that as we constrained our program, verified that there were utility assistance for folks in the county. Otherwise, we've been kind of draining down our angel donor fund. We did do a special request to our angel donor fund, and we received a pretty significant response from the community. So we've been able to kind of replenish that fund, and that will help us get through the summer with our Urbana households. I think only other items of note is we're working with a committee to talk about low barrier shelter provisions. I know Brayton from the city is also part of that committee. We met last Friday, and essentially we're looking to make sure, I know it's extremely hot right now, so it's not, we don't have shelter for everyone in the community. We do have cooling centers. The CU at Home is open. CU at Home is not actually an official cooling center. There are cooling centers in the community, and we're trying to verify if they're open. They tend to be municipal entities. So we're working internally to make sure that, for example, places like WorkNet and other places know that they are cooling centers, because we have had folks kicked out of who are homeless spaces that are actually official cooling centers. So if anyone hears of issues like that, we're collecting stories. People can contact my office and let us know, and we'll basically follow up and research to make sure that those cooling centers are available to folks and that those entities are aware that they are listed and funded through the state, as cooling centers. So we continue to look at the fall and what our winter shelter provision will be now that the low barrier shelter is closed. So I don't have a whole lot of updates except that we're basically meeting with every single partner. We're also working with our continuum. Thomas Bates is the coordinator of the continuum. He's doing a gap analysis, and we're working with him on that gap analysis to basically see where Township's role should lie with the low barrier shelter program. And so hopefully I'll have some updates. We have about 8 to 10 different conversations scheduled with different partners so that we can kind of survey the landscape there. I think other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions about our programs you might have from the supervisor's memo that I provided.
Mary Alice?
Hey, Danielle, thanks so much for all the updates. I was wondering what your thoughts were. I know unemployment is pretty low right now in our community, and I noticed that general assistance have been consistently low for the past couple of months. Is your impression that a lot of people are able to find work that are looking for work?
So what we're seeing actually is an increase in folks on disability who have a disability who are on our general assistance roles. So it's an interesting, definitely much less on the work side and much more on the participants with disabilities. Part of that is that now that folks have moved into Pinewood who were seeking disability payments from Champaign, they are now coming onto our rolls. So we have 11 participants who are coming onto our rolls. That's a piece of it, but it's not the whole picture because we saw an increase before. So there's kind of two pieces. The piece in terms of workforce development, yes, essentially we're seeing, especially as we reinstated the education and employment track, certainly folks are interested in pursuing education. It's taken a while to kind of get them in the queue and learn that system. But I think folks are seeing that it's easier for them to just seek employment than to go through our partnership with Salt and Light and basically receive general assistance. And that's a sign of the economy. Now, the economy usually has a downturn in the summer. I mean, in terms of unemployment, we see unemployment rates go up. We haven't really seen the consequences of that yet. So, we'll wait and see. We typically will see a bump in the summer months. We are definitely pushing general assistance for our homeless participants in the community. So our street outreach is really tied with our general assistance tightly. And the reason why is that is kind of our entry point for case management. Like, street outreach is one thing, but for intensive case management, to help somebody get disability payments, kind of assess their ability to work, figure out that piece. So we're seeing, I would say, some increase in we're getting folks housed, but we're seeing an increase in general assistance participants who are homeless. So I would say those are the two areas of kind of feeding into the general assistance pool, is people with disabilities and folks who are homeless. And, I think we want to work with them and help them to get housed and continue that pipeline.
So you had mentioned that you had an intern working on the dashboard so that we could kind of see over time. I was wondering if you had any updates on that.
Yeah, well, the numbers that you have here are from the dashboard, and then the annual, I sent you the town, what is it called? The annual meetings. I don't know if council members were there, but the annual meeting presentation is actually screenshots of the dashboard. What I am not comfortable with yet is posting it in a way where the real-time numbers are publicly visible, because I'm finding that they're not being updated in a regular basis. So on a monthly basis, I have to kind of make sure all of the numbers are up to date. So what I could do is I could basically provide screenshots of those or incorporate them into the supervisor's memo, so you at least have a monthly look. But the numbers here are from that dashboard, and then I sent you a kind of that presentation is what I did is I had every graph in the dashboard linked to one of the presentation slides, and then they automatically update in the presentation. So essentially, as the numbers update, then they're updated. So you could take a look at that, and
Okay.
I'm happy to provide it any time that you like to see it, or work to incorporate it into the supervisor's memo. But I would like to check the numbers each month, just because
having a screenshot in the memo, I think, would be helpful. Otherwise,
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
just relying on my memory in terms of
Yep.
of what the numbers were last time. And
Yep.
just based on my memory, I know that we were getting up in the 90s on current participants before, so
Yep.
dropping down to
Yeah.
57 is a pretty significant difference.
Yeah, I
Although the
think
90s was a while ago, right?
Yeah, well, you can look actually in the budget also has, there's a graph from the dashboard in the budget. There's actually two graphs. One shows general assistance cases over time, and it actually goes back to the 70s. And the other one shows general assistance payments, general assistance, rental assistance, and any kind of emergency assistance, like medical payments, other things. So those two graphs that are in the budget are basically from that dashboard.
Any other questions? JL?
Just a quick question. Can you help guide folks to where information about cooling centers would be? So I understand that there's
Yeah.
that need to kind of verify which ones are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but I think that's important information with
Yep.
this heat spike.
So 211 is really the best place to find information about the cooling centers. And then I think the second best place would be to direct anyone to the Phoenix Center. Because we're in conversation with the Phoenix Center and making sure that they know where they can direct folks when the Phoenix Center is closed. So those would be the two locations. Mhm.
And I
Oh,
would,
I also forgot to mention that we hit 100. I had a big balloon in the supervisor's memo. But basically, we had 100 households that we have helped move into subsidized housing in 2 years. So we were waiting for the 100 number, and we made it. We're very happy.
I thought you were talking about the temperature for a minute.
No, exactly. No, we're also going to hit 100 tomorrow. That's not the kind of 100
Yeah.
we'd like to hit. but-
Speaking of which, John Dwyer, who's the county's emergency management director, also keeps a list of cooling centers. So he would be another source.
Yep, not sure he posted anywhere on a website or so, I think.
Yeah, he did send around an email just about See You at Home.
Okay.
It's the
Yep.
only one, but. Okay, any other questions on the report? Don't think there's any unfinished business. We have new business, which is ordinance 2022-05-002, which is an ordinance approving the final annual budget and appropriations ordinance. And I know Danielle sent around some updates to you in an email, I believe with the final budget as well.
Just a quick point of process. Wayne, did you have any, I'm sorry, I should have called on you to see if you had any updates from the assessor's office after I was done.
Yeah, actually, the 2022 assessment values will be completed any day now. I would like to thank Vivian over in CD. She has been subjected to my emails at all times of day and night, and she's been very, very responsive and makes my job easier, and I'm very grateful for it. Stone Creek is keeping me busy. Those lots are selling like hotcakes, and there's a lot of building. There's a lot of new construction, so but we're chugging on along. Hopefully that continues, and it starts before next town board meeting, but generally assessments are gonna go up because of sales, and the housing market has been pretty red hot. So I would encourage people to look at their assessments in July. The appeal time is July 1st through September 10th. You can appeal your assessment at the Champaign County Board of Review. You can send it via email or go in person at the Brookins Center at 1776 East Washington.
Thank you, and apologies for skipping over you, Wayne. Okay, we'll move on to new business now. Danielle?
So I sent you an email about this, but essentially I just wanted to outline what changed from the draft version, which you've had for 30 days or so, to the final. I did slightly increase the social services grants because I had a little bit of savings in the ESG with the bump in ESG, so I got that up to $77,000. I did go ahead and increase the legal fees after hearing from you all and consulting with the assessor to talk about the P-tax, the pending tax appeal cases. These are small amounts. I think I increased the legal fees by $6,000. I'm still trying to keep a balanced budget, but I wanted to add where I could. And then we are looking, we'd really like to we have the Developmental Services Center is our volunteer force at the Township Garden. There's a number of folks in wheelchairs or with wheels of some sort who are accessing the garden. The raised beds are the perfect height for folks in wheelchairs. We've assessed this. It's working really well. But we really want to grade that garden to be more accessible. So I did some additional research and I had to bump up increase that amount. We're still hoping that we could use some volunteer labor for some of the excavation work around that. But and then in the General Assistance Fund, we received 3 times what we expected in ESG funding, at least in terms of the recommendation from the continuum. We still have a grant due to the state. As a result, more of the staffing costs are covered, and so I was able to bump up some assistance levels, so that's the good news. We've had so many requests for utility and rental assistance. That's really been the hot topic, that I went ahead and increased those as the best I could. And then I found out from the Township Supervisors of Illinois, I had reached out to them to figure out what the assistance level was that they were suggesting. I guessed at $315 and it was actually $325. So that's what City of Champaign Township is doing, and that's what we're doing. So I had to increase that. I did decrease the number of personal allowances slightly, partly because we've been seeing a decrease overall, and that's a very expensive program. But I think we're still, on target. It's definitely the average is above where we are right now. And then I added some additional maintenance costs. We finally got parts of our energy audit back and are looking at how we can do, especially with rising energy costs, how we can implement those energy enhancements at the new properties as soon as possible. So I just wanted to add in some dollars for those energy, for our portion. Actually, a lot of it is paid for by Ameren and the incentive program, but we have certain portions. I just didn't have a number on those. So anyway, those are the changes that I've made to the budget. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And I believe the assessors, there was no change in the assessors side at all.
Mary Alice.
So now that you drew my attention to one of the dashboard pictures, Danielle, on page 8, you have the assistant levels for fiscal year 1998 to 2021, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding this graph in comparison to the proposed budget. So in fiscal year 21, you have spending approximately $750,000 in assistance levels, which is rent, medical, and general assistance. Does that include salaries of people who are working with these individuals?
Nope, it's just the general assistance payments in both cases.
Okay, so if I look at, so you have 695 is the proposed budget, right, for this coming up year, but we spent close to 750,000, so that's about $50,000 less that you're proposing for the next budget year, is that correct?
Yeah, so fiscal year 21 was our COVID year. So we have a lot of assistance dollars that came out of that piece. And that, most of it you can see is our general assistance. What we don't have is the year that we're just about to complete, fiscal year 22, and you'll see that those dollars came down. So I think that our overall assistance budget is in line with where we're currently spending. It's certainly, we're gonna see a fiscal year 21 bump in assistance, which is what you see at the bottom of page 8.
So if I was to align the graph with the proposed budget, is it appropriate to look at the total GA restricted fund, or is it, and then just the programs piece? What is the appropriate?
Yeah, so I would
Comparison.
look at, let me just get down to, so it's gonna be, we try, it used to be on many pages, thanks to our office, our operations director. We're now on one page, which is really great. You can kind of see across the board. So general, let's see, so in terms of our overall programs, we're at 778. Just for programs. So programs does not include staffing costs. Staffing costs would be under personnel. Up
Right,
above.
are you talking about this fiscal or the proposed
I'm
budget?
talking about the proposed budget. Proposed budget, if you go to the actual numbers on the budget, in the PDF, it's number 16, page 16.
Is it this one? I
It's-
don't have the PDF up. This
With-
is,
Yeah, so, okay, so you have it in front of you. So essentially, you can look at your program budget is 774,120.
oh, so you're combining the restricted and the, I see.
Exactly, so you can see that's basically almost all of our program dollars, with the exception of grants. It's unclear to me if our grants can come out of GA, so I've played it safe from my reading of the law. We've historically always had them come out of the supervisor's fund, and I've kept it that way. So 77,000 of that is grants, which I think is legitimately in our assistance budget in terms of like straight up assistance. Now, obviously, some of that is for staff time for our partners, but the rest of it is, straight assistance. And then you can see obviously the staff time that's associated with that. And if you look at general assistance, the big buckets are essentially our staff, our administration, which includes the administration of the properties. So there's the big numbers there. They're larger because we are managing those properties. And then you will see the program items.
So it's certainly not necessary for this budget, but I'm wondering if perhaps at the end of maybe September or something, you can provide the town board with a summary of all the expenses for the family emergency housing that you have in California?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think on a month-by-month basis, the way we've cut, it's a little bit hard to look at, but essentially, if you look at the town bills, the way that we are setting it up in that summary report is that you'll see there's something called EH, no, excuse me. Yes, EH. So EH is a class within kind of the General Assistance Fund, which is specifically our emergency housing. And so we could do a profit and loss for the whole year for, just for EH, for emergency housing, especially once we've allocated. We have to do adjusting journal entries for the staff time. So we can move that over to EH, and that will basically show your income and expenses. So on a
I'm not
month-to-month
seeing
basis, you
EH
are
here.
able to see the EH expenses. What's that?
I said, I'm not, are you talking about the summary
I'm
page?
no, I'm sorry, I'm back at the town bills.
Right,
So
I'm on the town bills.
when you look at the town bills, we now have a income and expenses by division, and there's a lot of categories. In the past, you might have seen just supervisor's fund, assessor's fund, town fund, other GA, and then the total. We are now tracking all of our grants in columns. So grants or like standalone programs in columns.
Right,
So it's actually
right.
really easy to see what the expenses are in that month. And I certainly, when we do our quarterly report, so July's meeting, I will not be here. The program director and operations director will be standing in. I will be out of the country for a vacation finally. And so they can basically give you the financial, end of year financial report. And I can ask them to look at the emergency housing piece. But it's all pulled out separately. It's very easy for us to track because it's in its own class, its own column.
Okay, I don't see it, but that's okay, I can follow
Okay.
up with you later, not a big deal.
Yeah.
I just, very small font.
Yep. Yeah, and Wayne's reminded me, we also are gonna be doing line item transfers. So we'll most likely be doing that in August. But essentially what we'll do is have to transfer funds from one line item to the other to close out the books for the end of the fiscal year. So you'll see both of those. You'll see what we've spent, kind of budget to actuals in our financial report. And then you'll be able to see kind of where we were over. For example, we know we're way over on rental assistance, we're way under on general assistance. We'll be transferring dollars from the rental assistance line item from the general assistance line item to the rental assistance. So,
And roughly how many people do you have working on the GA programs? So we have a budget line here proposed at 370,000.
yep. Yeah, so we have, well, there's a question of if it's full-time equivalents or actually bodies in the office.
FTE.
What's that?
full-time- FTE, full-time equivalent.
So FTE is, hold on a second. Nine and a half.
We have 9.5 FTE.
Yep.
And then we're allocating with the proposed 325 increase, we're allocating, that would be 312,000, is that right?
I'm not following you.
I'm sorry?
I'm not following. What are you referring to?
So you propose to raise the GA payments to 325 for next fiscal year?
Yep.
And that equates to the program allowance checks of $312,000?
Yep, this is, hold on. It would be,
It'll be under program 6725?
yep, 312.
Okay,
Correct.
I was confirming that that's how I should be reading it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, and I just want to also point out that the general assistance staff members, one is paid in full by USD, and 3 are paid by ESG funds. So it's important to look, when you look at the staff dollars, not only the number of people, but also where they're being funded by. So essentially, we've been able to grow our budget significantly and have a balanced budget because we have new dollars coming in. And none of the private fundraising pays for our staff time. So essentially, if we have new staff members coming in beyond what we've budgeted, we have new income coming in to pay for it. That's the only way we get to a balanced budget.
So in terms of the grants, you're talking about the State of Illinois DHS grant and the USD grant?
Correct.
So what, 150, 250,000, is that right?
Yeah, it's significant. We have 4 DHS grants, which we are administering this next fiscal year. 3 through the city of Urbana, and 1 through, that will be directly. And it's outlined in the budget. There's a whole section, Mary Alice, on ESG. I would direct you to, which details this.
So really staffing costs for the GA are about, what, 125? About 105, sorry, 105,000.
It's, if you look at the budget, it's general assistance, staffing costs. No, it looks like it's 4,
Oh, sorry, I was just looking.
494,
You're talking
5,
about the total.
which
yeah.
includes all the fringe benefits.
Right, I wasn't including fringe, but you're right, you're absolutely right.
Yep.
Right.
Any other questions folks have?
Wayne, did you have any comments on the budget to add? Okay. Chandra? Okay.
I'll move approval of ordinance T-2022-05-002, ordinance approving the final annual budget and appropriation ordinance fiscal year 2022-2023 for approval.
I'll second.
Moved by Chandra, seconded by Jaya. Further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes,
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop.
Yes.
That motion passes. You have a budget.
Great, I'm ready to spend it.
Okay. With no further business before this meeting, we are adjourned.